Welcome everyone to Mind Model Mastery Secrets. My name is Ashley and I'm here with Blair Dunkley today. And we have two very special guests to come and share their story with us. So we are here with Tim and Becky Graff. And I actually met them when I met Blair. It's now been 6 years ago, which is absolutely crazy. And about a year and a half into knowing them, they had tragedy absolutely hit their family. And so they're going to share their story with us and how they were able to move through it in a healthy way and be able to get to a place where obviously that tragedy is still there, but they have a life that they enjoy. So I'll let you guys dive in here, Blair, if you want to say some words, and then we will start asking you some questions about your
Super.
story and your journey.
Yep. Thank you, Ashley. I just want to acknowledge and show appreciation to Becky and Tim for coming on and sharing their story. I think it's huge, it's vital, and I don't want to steal any of their thunder. So I will let them tell their story. Um, yeah, and we shall chat. So anyway,
All
take
right.
it away.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Ashley and Blair, for having us on.
Yes.
Mind models are a big part of our life. And as Ashley mentioned, we met a long time ago. So, what, 6.5, 7 years now is what it's been. And at the time, our focus for learning the mind models was a little bit different. Definitely focused on being more effective in our world. Things are going great. We actually we're teaching these skills to our daughters, which was super fun, ages 3 and 7 at the time. And they were soaking up as sponges. And we were wanting to be able to create an atmosphere in our home where they could have the best possible outcome in life, knowing how to think, not just what to think. And so it was a really cool process there. And then, as Ashley mentioned, about a year and a half in, almost a year to the date after we got certified in Mind Model Method Coach Training, which is a program that Blair offers, in addition to some of the other programs, we had tragedy strike the day after Mother's Day. We were actually coming up on the 5-year anniversary. And what that was is, as an outdoor family, we love spending time outdoors with our daughters. Again, very much a cohesive family unit. And we love to go to southern Utah. And there's some hiking down there that we love to do in a slot canyon, which, if you're not familiar what a slot canyon is a very narrow section of rock on either side, hundreds to thousands of feet on either side, and the distance between in the middle can be anywhere from 1.5 feet, 2 feet, and wider. And it's a place that we've been many, many times, ever since the girls were little. In fact, we hiked it while I was pregnant several times.
Yep.
So no stranger to the area. And anytime you're in that area, you take precautions, you check the weather, you make sure that you have supplies and things that you needed. So we did all that. And the day after Mother's Day, we were hiking. And do you want to finish showing?
Yeah, so this had become a Mother's Day tradition for us to go down and to spend some time in this area. It's Goblin Valley State Park is right there. The girls love to go and explore and play on all the what they call the hoodoos there. And then also just down the road from that is Little Wild Horse Slot Canyon. And as Becky mentioned, it's just a really tight canyon. It's actually part of a drainage where the water comes out. And so, as she mentioned, you take precautions. You watch the weather, you check, you make sure there is no, rain or anything like that within, a certain range of miles so that, you're not going to have a chance of flooding up above that comes down or anything like that. And we've been hiking these canyons for a long time. I mean, Becky had been hiking this particular canyon since she was a child. And it was a tradition to go down and to hike this with the girls. And so we were there on Mother's Day weekend, and the girls were super excited to go hike the canyon. Unfortunately, that weekend we had, when we were towing our trailer and side by side that we had enjoyed and spent some time playing on that weekend, we had an issue with one of the axles on our trailer. And my brother-in-law was actually with us as well and had his truck, he left the power on over the night and his battery went dead. And we needed some jumper cables, which I thought I had, but unfortunately found out I didn't. So that weekend, the girls really wanted to go hike. And I knew that we were leaving that next morning and we needed to have things ready to go. And so I had actually said to Becky, I need to run into the local town about 20 miles down the road and get the supplies that we need to fix the axle and get some jumper cables and those things so that we can get back on the road when we need to. So how about I drop you and the girls off at the canyon, at the trailhead, and you and also my brother-in-law, you guys can start hiking. I'll run to town, get what we need, and then I'll come back. So I did that and dropped them off at the trailhead. And I was in such a hurry to leave at the moment, and run into town and come back, that, to be honest, one of the things that runs through my head is did I give my girls a hug? Did you know what? I was attempting to rush off, but I had dropped them at the trailhead, and then I went into town, and Becky and the girls started hiking up the canyon.
Yeah. So as we mentioned, we take precautions with the weather. That day it was super hot, like crazy hot. I stopped more than one time to make sure that I had enough water in my backpack. Tim and I are in the area. There's not a lot of cell phone service, and so we were arguing over who needed the cell phone. I'd left mine at camp. He had his. And I'm like, "You take it. You're going to be in town, and you need to make some calls if you need to." And he's like, "No, you need to take pictures, so you take it." And I remember stopping right before we got into one of the narrower sections, because you drop into a wash and you hike for a little bit, and then the walls get taller and it gets narrower. And because it was so hot, um, I stopped to check the water, and I had realized that I put the cell phone in the backpack. And at that moment, I decided, fine, right? I'll take it out. I'll have it with me. I'll take pictures. Tim's going to be with us soon anyway, so it doesn't really matter. We started hiking. Girls were having lots of fun, playing on rocks, sticky shoes, the whole nine, pausing, doing ta-da, all that good stuff. And as we walked further in the canyon, the walls got taller, and you couldn't see as much as the sky, as much of the sky. As we entered in, there was nothing but blue sky, no clouds, no nothing. Again, as I mentioned, hot. As we went further into the canyon, all of a sudden I heard something that sounded like a shotgun. And I kind of like paused for a second. You know, you check in with yourself, like, do I feel unsafe? Is there anything weird going on here? Looked above me, saw nothing but blue sky based on the weather reports that we got. Like that was weird. It must have been just something random. And so we continued forward. We kept going a little bit farther, and I heard the sound again. So I stopped. Again, self-assessment. Do I feel weird? Do I feel anything uncomfortable? This isn't something that we've never done before. And so there have been times where we've been in a situation where we felt like, okay, we need to get out of here. None of that presented itself. So we kept on going. All of a sudden, I heard it again, and all of a sudden, I started seeing water droplets enter into the canyon, and my heart sank. And I'm like, okay, this isn't good. So I told my girls to wait with their uncle while I ran ahead a little bit to see where we were inside the canyon, because once you enter, there's only certain places where you can exit. You either have to go forward or you've got to go back. And depending on where we were at, would determine which direction. I had gone only a few feet before I felt the sensation slam into my chest, run. And
Mm.
so I turned around and I scooped up my little Ellie, who was 3, and told Kinsley, my 7-year-old, and my brother-in-law, we got to get out of here. We got to run. So we started running down canyon. At that time, the water was coming down in torrents from the sky. Um, Trickles of water started running down on the bottom. And it was a very scary thing because there's nowhere to go. I got my little girl on my hip, and we were running for our lives. Um, to cut a story a little bit short, it ended up that a flash flood was triggered. The rain had turned into ice balls, and the dangerous conditions caused the hail to build up on the high buttes, and it pulled the water from the rain, and then all of a sudden it busted it down, and so it was pouring down over the top, as well as a wave hit us from behind. And unfortunately, myself and my 2 girls were swept away. Um, and Tim and I were not together at that time. And as a mom, as a parent, I don't think that there's anything more terrifying than being so utterly helpless in a situation that is completely outside of your control. And Tim, while that was going on for us, had a different experience.
Yeah, so I had gone into town and found the necessary things that I needed. It didn't really hit me until I had I had finished up what I needed to in town, and I was hurrying. I wanted to get back. I wanted to spend, time with Becky and the girls hiking up the canyon. And so I was in a hurry to get back to them. And as I finished up at the local store with the necessary things that I needed and turned back on the highway, you're facing towards Goblin Valley, towards the area that we were camping as on the road. And I saw the storm cell, I saw the storm system moving in through that area, and immediately just felt this isn't good. Like the oh crap. The yeah, the oh crap hit me immediately, and I floored the vehicle. And it's 20 miles from town into where we were at. And so I was driving as fast as I possibly could to get back there. It's a little windy road, especially once you get up towards the state park. And I was off the road, I was on the road. And at one point, as I got close to the storm, the hail that Becky was talking about that ultimately built up and caused the water to pool hit so hard on the vehicle that it was like a couple inches of snow just magically appeared on the front windshield. My windshield fogged up. I couldn't see, and I had to slam on the brakes, roll down the driver's side window, and stick my head out the window because the windshield wipers weren't keeping up and the window had fogged over to the point where I couldn't see out the front windshield. And so I am driving and getting pelted in the head by hail and attempting, it was, piling up on the road, attempting to keep the vehicle on the road as it started fishtailing. And so it was a little bit of a on the road, off the road until I was able to get back to the trailhead. I immediately hopped out of the vehicle and started up canyon. You have a little trail and then you drop into the wash where you actually start up the canyon. I was running up the trail, and as soon as I met the wash, there was a wave of water that came down through the wash. Um, I waited for the wave to go by because I knew that if I'd stepped in front of that, I was going to get swept as well. So I waited for the wave to go by, and as soon as it had gone by and the water had still rushing, but the main bulk of that had gone by, I stepped down into the water, waist deep, and started holding on to the bank, started working my way upstream. Um, I was maybe 5, 10 feet into making my way upstream when I noticed, as I looked up canyon, um, I saw what looked like my 7-year-old floating downriver towards me. And at first it hit me like the wave. I went, oh my gosh, it's Kinsley. And then that immediate, like, no, no, the denial kicked in. And as I took a second look, it that awareness that, yeah, it is. And so I moved out towards the center of the wash as she came to me and grabbed her, moved her to the bank, and immediately put her on the bank, tipped her up on her side, started patting her back, and started doing CPR. Um, when that didn't seem to be working after a couple minutes, didn't I wasn't well, it seemed like I wasn't getting through. I threw her over my shoulder, and I got her back to the vehicle and worked my way down to the Goblin Valley Ranger Station where I was able to get first responders and life flight and those called and on their way. And the first responders got there and eventually took over with McKinsley doing those life-saving CPR and stuff on her. The last I heard with her was the first responders were able to get a heartbeat. And so I had hope. And I went, okay, she's in the best hands possible. I know Becky and Ellie are still up the canyon somewhere, and so is my brother. I need to get back up there and see how I can help. So I actually got one of the rangers to take me back to the canyon, where I again worked upstream and eventually ran into Becky coming down with help. She was pretty banged up, but as I met her, I could tell that she was obviously hurt, but she was alive. And I didn't see Ellie. And so I immediately asked her, where's the baby? And she said, I don't know. I don't have her. Um, as I gave her a quick hug, I immediately kept looking for Ellie. I went past Becky and kept working upstream, eventually running into my brother and asked him, he said, Becky and the girls went ahead of me. We also had one of the things we didn't mention is we had our dog with us that trip, our little dog, and our dog had turned up canyon. And so Jacob went after the dog, and during that time, he had gotten separated from Becky and the girls um, as they were running down canyon. So as soon as I realized that Jacob didn't have the baby as well, I knew that Ellie was downstream somewhere. And so I immediately turned my focus downstream. And to make a long story short, Ellie was actually found 28 miles downriver the next morning by myself. I actually found her. Um, it was with the help of Life Flight, but well, yeah, Life Flight had come over, or not Life Flight, sorry, the DPF helicopter and search and rescue were there. But we were able to find her that next morning at about 11 a.m. So, um, yeah.
It doesn't get more tragic than that.
Mm-mm.
Oh my God.
We went from a young family to empty nesters overnight. One of the things that, Becky, once she got down to the ambulance, was taken to the hospital and taken to get care. One of the things that when I finally met up with her after finding the girls and everything settled with the search and rescue, she was concerned that I was going to blame her, that I was going to leave her, that it was going to destroy us. And as you can see, we're still here, and in many respects, that is due to the skills that we learned from Blair. Going through that Mind Model Coach class the year before, a lot of the questions that we were asking ourselves that day, a lot of what we worked through that day, and a lot of us sitting right here in front of you is because of the skills that we learned.
Awesome. If it's okay with you, would you mind sharing some of the things that you did that helped you keep your relationship, and your headspace
Mhm.
and whatever else you feel is relevant that listeners might be interested in knowing? How do you survive this?
Yeah, great question. So for me, one of the things that was a big deal was understanding the difference between safety and comfort. As you can imagine, being tumbled upside down with water, we can't see anything, and having such a radically impactful outcome can do a lot. And for me, there was a lot of triggers around water, the sound of water, temperature change. There's a lot going on there. And so, one specific key difference for me is understanding the difference between am I safe or uncomfortable? And the difference between safety is my physical environment. And people could be like, well, there's a lot of things that could be unsafe. And an example of this is not too long after this went down, Tim and I actually went back to the canyon where it happened, which for a lot of people would be like, I can't,
Mhm.
this stuff happens and I just can't go there.
Mm-hmm.
And this piece of understanding, the canyon is not unsafe inherently. The canyon is simply the canyon. It just does its thing. What we do or how we engage things that happen may or may not, change that. And so understanding the difference of safety versus comfort, and then understanding how to name and label what I'm feeling and understand the difference, and being able to pay honor to what that is, allowed me to put things in perspective of how they actually are versus what my body was telling me. And being able to work with my biology, work with, okay, I'm freaking out right now. My heart and my body physiologically is telling me that I'm gonna have a panic attack and this is an unsafe place. But what do I know? I know that the sun is out. I know that a rock is simply a rock and it's over there and I can step on it and I can sit on it. It's not going to like jump out of the thing and bite me. It's an inanimate object. It's how I engage with it. I was able to very incrementally thin slice and describe what was going on in in the surroundings in any given moment to be able to get traction and to be able to move forward. So it wasn't unsafe. I was just extremely uncomfortable due to the experience that I had in that location.
So, in short, you're using the mind model safety versus comfort,
Yes.
naming and labeling, um, and others in there. a lot of others. I won't
A lot of others.
list, I won't list
How
them
much
all.
time do we have?
Yeah, really. Yeah, but just to sort of be able to manage your brain so that the triggering event is not the driver event. It's the thing that doesn't drive you. Your mind, your choice is your driver when you can test it and make it identifiable, repeatable, and duplicatable, as all mind models are. Also, get it externally verifiable. And that's one of the other ones, externally verifiable versus internally verifiable. So I'm hearing a lot of that stuff going on. Um, yeah, wow, that's mind blowing. I've actually never heard the full story
Mm.
in all this time together. This is the first time I've heard you guys talk about it, known about it, and
Mhm.
talked to you about it earlier, but not with this level of.
There's a lot of nuances that go into it. And as Tim mentioned, understanding how our brain works.
Yep.
So the pairings, how we differentiate the words that we use, the associations that we make really made a huge difference for us because then we were able to harness that. So am
Mhm,
I safe or am I uncomfortable? Is what I'm doing and what I'm feeling effective or ineffective for what I want right now? So effective
mhm,
versus ineffective is another mind model. And, Tim and I both have the skills and yet and experienced the same tragic loss. We were in two different locations. And so we're each individually in our own part of the story, like when it was actually happening. We're utilizing different mind models to get through, yet we still have the same ability to get traction in what we're going through. Even today, for an example, you know, I got excuse me, get emotional because I still feel the depth of it.
Mhm.
But there's a difference between remembering it and sharing it from that space and then reliving it and living in it, which is a big deal in being able to get um, distance and healing when you're dealing with challenging things. So, as you mentioned, Blair, you hadn't heard the depth of our story. There's a lot of nuances to this.
Yeah. And actually, that was kind of the Cliff Note version, essentially, of
I'm
what we
sure.
experienced over those 2 days. There was a lot that was packed into and just to that 2 days. And so many of your mind models and so many of your skills were used over those 2 days to help us, attempt to wrap our heads around what was actually going on. I mean, speaking for myself, that day, the two big mind models that were going through my mind was control versus influence.
Mhm,
One of the things that I learned going through my model coach and learning the mind models was, and we hear this, and I think most people understand it in a general sense that
mhm,
conceptually, the only thing that we can actually control is ourselves.
mhm,
Yet, a lot of us tend to go throughout life attempting to, control others, control situations, control things that come up because we want to be in control of our own life. But really, the only thing that we can actually control is ourselves. So, when it comes to others, when it comes to situations, all we can actually do with others and situations is influence. And so control and influence were going through my head that day. What can I control here? What do I have control over? I have control over myself.
yep,
Okay. So knowing that, what can I do? That question, that process was going through my mind. Also, with that, and I mentioned it, it's the mind model of self, situation, and other. I have control of myself. I do not have control of the situation itself. A canyon is a canyon. The rocks, the water, nature is going to do what nature is going to do. It's not doing anything. Another mind model that comes up is, evaluation versus judgment. I can't judge the canyon. you know I,
It's not wrong or bad for
yeah, it's
being a
not right,
canyon.
wrong, good or bad. The weather is going to do what the weather does. A canyon does. It's a waterway. It does what it does. There's a reason that it is so beautiful, and that is because water has shaped it and formed it over so many years. So I can't judge a canyon or blame the situation or another person, which was one of the things that she was super concerned about was, did I do something wrong? Was I in the wrong place at the wrong time? We looked at the weather. We looked at all the things. We took the precautions. There was nothing that we saw that showed
Danger.
anything, yeah, the danger. In fact, there was we found out after the fact that there was actually a gentleman up the canyon who was a weatherman for a local news station, and he, again, wasn't aware of it. Goblin Valley State Ranger Park, the park there, the state park, said that they had a 10-minute warning from the moment they found out a storm was moving in to the moment it had dumped and moved out. There was 10 minutes. So they called it,
The storm of the
what the
century.
news report said afterwards was it was the storm of the century. It was just this crazy storm that moved through. And so again, to situations doing what they're going to do. Others in the situation doing what they needed to. And I knew for myself that day that Becky would never harm our girls, that Becky would never purposely do anything to put them in harm's way or anything. I knew she did, as a mother, everything that she possibly could do in the situation with what she had control. And so those my models, the my model of self situation that was going through. And that's a lot of, again, we're sitting here today because of that awareness that I have. I think a lot of people look for something to blame, whether it's a situation or someone else. And that causes issues in marriage after especially such a tragic thing. So, I mean, those were two big mind models that have helped me.
It sounds like acceptance is
Yes,
another huge one. The mind model of acceptance
yes.
is there.
So when one of the things that we learned when going through this My Model Coach with Blair is acceptance. Acceptance, again, to take a lot of people have a misconception about acceptance. It's if I accept something, it means somehow that I agree with it or that it's okay. And again, evaluation versus judgment and taking the judgment out of it, it's acceptance at its core is just the awareness of what is. It is simply identifying what is. What is? The canyon did what it did. We happen to be there. So you can accept something for simply what it is. It doesn't mean you like it, have to agree with it, any of that. You take the judgment out of it. But if you can accept things truly for what they are, just simply what is, that gives you that first foothold, that grounding to be able to move forward. Because at the core, we do have to accept things to be able to then move forward.
Wow. You know, I work with people with phobias, fears, and anxieties um, that have been in those situations. Well, not yours, but their version of something that has now triggered a phobic reaction or a fear or anxiety reaction. And one of the things that I'm hearing actually, and I talked to you guys briefly about this before we got on air here, and that was about the do loop. If you have a feeling, you know it's referred to as the do loop, but technically it's feel, know, do, back to the feeling.
Mhm.
And what you guys are talking about, which just hit me when you were talking, it's you have a feeling about what's going on. You now apply, know, a mind model to interrupt the normal reaction to it of blaming, of doing all the other stuff that you'd normally do with it, and you get to a different outcome rather than the anticipated one that you're at in the beginning. So
Mhm.
it's I basically draw this and it goes F1 to knowledge, over to do, and then up to F2, a second feeling. And this feeling, one of the things that I'm hearing over and over again is acceptance and understanding of each other, let
Mhm.
alone the situation. And the myriad of other things is there, and a ton of curiosity, as
Mhm.
opposed to blame and anger and frustration and upset and guilt and everything else that could go along with that. Like, oh my gosh, you guys did a, you guys prefixed the phobia, fear, or anxiety before it had a chance to dig in. Not saying that you're not reactive, because I mean, I've gone through my own tragedies, as you guys know, with my dad being in a coma for 14 years, my nephew at 7 passing away and dealing with that tragedy, like lots of tragedies, nothing quite as dramatic as yours in the space of time that you guys did. But that's how come I created the mind models in the first place, was to do that. And that's what I work with. Some of the work that I do is with people who are going through these tragic events of phobias, fears, and anxieties in particular, and just being able to do this. But I've never heard you tell the story like this before, actually, and I've never thought about it in terms of you guys did applied this so that where a husband and wife would frequently get to, which is divorce,
Hmm.
was interrupted before it had a chance to actually dig in and all the pointing fingers, blame, and everything else that want to go along with that. Yeah, you're nodding your head, Tim and Becky. So if you guys want to talk to any of that, I'd be thrilled to hear what you have to say.
And it's interesting, like in a relationship, like we're married for years before we learned the mind models, and we had our struggles in communication. You know, he's a guy, I'm a girl, and we don't share the same brain cell all the time. The cool thing was when we learned mind models, it gave us a common language of understanding.
Yes.
And it gave us a frameworks, not just a framework, but frameworks in which we could utilize to be able to interface with each other. And that was the backbone. So Tim talked about self, situation, and other. We each had our own self, right? We each all have our own selves. We each have our own situations or our perspective of a situation as it relates to others. And so being able to utilize, naming and labeling of what part of this is mine, acknowledging and accepting what I feel and not judging it for right, wrong, good, or bad, and not putting my feelings on Tim or vice versa. Like,
Huge.
Yep.
it's a big deal to honor the feelings as they are and not like get mad at him because I'm having a crap day and I'm in my, I'm having a rougher time. And how dare you be okay today? How dare you do that? We were able to mitigate that because we understood again how to be curious about the other person and interface clarity versus certainty. If he's walled off and he's like stone faced, I could very easily be like, oh man, crap, he's mad at me, right? But I have the ability to check in with him and test my assumption, right? Clarity versus certainty. Am I certain that he's angry at me, or am I coloring that with my own feelings because I'm having a bad day too, and I just want to like dogpile on myself?
What,
Or go
yeah,
ahead.
what Becky's speaking to is, a lot of times we're both having a crap day. I mean, Mother's Day's coming up. Traditionally we're currently in Texas right now, but we would traditionally be in southern Utah doing that anniversary hike. And as you can imagine, when these holidays come up, when the girls' birthdays come up, Christmas, all these big holidays, we miss the girls. Certain, dates, times, those kinds of things where memories, there are moments where we are both emotionally charged. And in those moments, we're able to name and label what I'm feeling, what she's feeling. And we have learned to work very careful with each other in those moments because when we're both in that place of heavy emotion, it's very easy for us to get into an argument, to not understand the other person, to not stay curious. And so, but learning these skill sets that we have with the mind models, staying curious, and another big mind model that Blair talks about often is ask versus tell. A lot of times when we're in emotion, a lot of times when we're feeling all these things, we want, and we're driving for, here's another mind model, clarity versus certainty. When we want that certainty, and the reason why or whatever for what I'm feeling, we tend to just tell, and we tend to, whether we realize we're doing it or not, a lot of times we're telling people how we feel and we just need to vent and get it out. And really, there is something very powerful in asking questions. So as Becky alluded to, when we're feeling emotions, it's asking, what are you feeling? What's coming up for you? And staying curious. That helps us mitigate getting into a fight or those feelings. We tread lightly, as I put it, with each other when we're both emotionally charged.
Mhm.
And we ask questions instead of just immediately going to, you're upset, I'm upset too, and start telling and really going into that negative headspace.
And it's interpersonally as well. So that's, us working together, asking questions, but also asking ourselves questions.
Yep.
What am I feeling right now?
Yep.
Is this reasonable? What do I want to do about this? What am I feeling? What do I know about that? What about that's true? And then based on whatever answers you're getting, externally verifiable, internal versus external, what do I want to do about it? There's
Mm.
plenty of days where I was in an emotional state where I didn't want to do anything and I felt like crap. What do I know about this? Right now, it really freaking sucks. What do I want to do about it? I'm going to sit here and cry for 10 minutes and then I'll check in with myself again, giving myself permission, but I was still in the driver's seat.
Yep.
I wasn't being, bombarded by or swept away completely by the emotion. I was aware of what I was feeling. I was aware of where I was, and I got to choose. And having the power of choice, another one, is a big deal as a human being to feel as if you have choice, because you do in everything. Even when you feel like you don't, you do.
There is a choice.
There is a choice.
Even that day in the canyon,
Yeah.
when our life was being swept away, literally, we had choice.
And it's a huge thing to understand how your brain works, and the mind models that Blair teaches give you choice. It's either this or that. One step at a time, very simple. It's not overwhelming. It's in the worst of the worst moments ever. In a place where Tim and I were both, I'm speaking for you, we're completely browned out, and in a place where we were living and operating from shock. Okay. We were able to still incrementally get traction and have an element, a tacit element of felt control of at least ourselves, when situations and others were far from anything that we would ever hope or wish on our worst enemy.
Yeah.
Which is a very powerful thing.
And when you speak to Blair, when you speak to, the fear and anxiety and things that you're helping people with, this is what has allowed us and did allow us to go back to the canyon shortly after this happened, because all these mind models that we've been talking about, these are the questions that we were asking ourselves in the moment. Am I safe? What do I know about the situation right here? What do I want to do about it? I have choice. I can accept what's going on. How do I want to proceed forward? Like all of these mind models that we've learned over the time that we had them that day, but it has also allowed us to face those moments of fear and anxiety of going back to the canyon. Becky, she has a license plate on her car that says "Face It," and I'm speaking for you now.
Oh, see, we work really well.
Yeah, we did. This is great.
Ask versus tell.
Well, I'll let you speak to it, but she's basically told me many times that she refuses to be ruled by the fear, the PTSD, and the triggers that come up. Just to mention, we ran the Grand Canyon, which is the biggest whitewater in North America, about 3 months after this accident, Becky, on whitewater. And a lot of what we've been speaking to is what has allowed her to do that. And I'll let her speak to the fear side of it and how she works through that. But
when fight or flight kicks in, you literally feel like you can't, right? You're frozen. You've frozen in fear. Like that's a real thing. And for me, having the biggest chunk of my life literally radically changed forever, and the fear that was quickly replaced was not okay for me. I have never felt more powerless in my entire life, to literally have no control, like no control over my body, how I was moving. The only thing that I had control over is how I chose to engage in my mind. Okay. And so having come through this, it was one of those things, like all of our memories with our girls were built outside. It was waterfalls and it was hikes and it was rivers. It was all of the things. And in a moment, any sight or sound of that brought terror. And I don't use that word lightly, like terror physiologically, by body shaking, wanting to throw up kind of fear. Okay. And I remember telling Tim the first time, like, I don't want to live like this. I don't want my life, my quality of life to constantly be this. This is not okay. And so it was incrementally, walking through a very simple process of, what do I feel? I'm feeling terrified right now. What do I know about that? I know that it sucks, but I also know that I am in a safe location. Tim's with me, like assessing my surroundings. What do I want to do? And so that was an incremental process. So the river trip, It was a 6-day river trip. Once you got on the water, you didn't get off unless you were helicoptered out because of danger. Biggest whitewater North America water, not just lazy water, okay, but as close to a recreation of a flash flood sensation as I could get, honestly. Um, Within 90 days of having this event happen, we were there. Now, did I go into it like skipping and joyful? No. Told Tim, like, I don't think I can do this. But he's just like, okay, well, it's up to you. And so I kept walking myself through that process. What do I feel? I feel scared, but what do I know? I know that
Can I
nothing.
point a few things out here?
Yes,
Yes,
please
please.
do.
Your most people's terror, having worked with a lot of people, like,
Yep.
we had at Life Skills College, at our peak, we had about 1,000 students a year, 800 of them potentially suicidal. So one of the things when people are in terror, like what you're describing, frequently they're stating their story.
Mm.
But I'd love the listeners here to listen in deeply to how Becky's framing her questions. What am I feeling? Name and label it. What am I going through? Name and label it. All of this is not like the question asked is critical because what I've discovered is that there's really two types of emotion. There's what emotion and there's why emotion. And if you're trapped in why emotion, you get caught up in the story, in the horror, in the replay of it and reliving of it frequently.
Yep.
But if you break it out into what based questions and leave your answer only as the name and label of what it is that you're feeling or what it is that you see or do, and keep it down short, amazing transformations happen. People can get through a lot. Thank you.
And to that point, Blair, like what I was doing is I wasn't justifying what I felt. I didn't have to
No,
have a reason or excuse for what I was feeling. It's simply like right now,
just what
okay,
it is.
what is it?
Yep.
What's going on right now? Not what it was, not might it, what it would be, or manufacturing the fear in the future. In fact, with the river trip, at first that was a hell no for me. Like, I'm not doing that. That was the first initial reaction. And then it was like, okay, but what do I know? Okay. So I walked myself back through the situation and willing to test because 9 times out of 10, what you think is going to be so horrible and bad isn't. In fact, it's the
Right.
step you need to take to get traction or empowerment on the other side.
Absolutely. It's
Yes.
huge. Huge. Wow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, um, part of the process that we went through was externalizing things. So external versus internal as far as a process. And what it ended up becoming was
It was an interesting evolution. We'll speak to that. We knew about external versus internal, and externalizing feelings, externalizing thoughts help.
Mhm.
It's part of that healing process. It's part of moving you forward, is externalizing those things instead of burying your feelings and going internal with it. And so one of the things that Becky did very effectively was starting to, I call it journal, but she would start writing down what she was feeling, what was coming up for her. And then the curiosity kicked in. It was, well, this is some pretty deep and pretty cool stuff that we're talking through here. Maybe sharing it on social media can help others. And so,
And what it was a true evaluation of if I'm going to externalize this, which is awesome, I could keep it just for myself.
yep.
But what would my girls do? If we are going through such a challenging thing and something that radically shifted our world, if there's something that is working for us, if there's something inside of our process that could be of the help of another person, just communicating and seeing what was possible inside of our process, then I might as well share it. It's hard either way. Sometimes that comes up like it's so hard to get the feelings and emotions out. It's
Yeah.
true. It's hard to post it online. It's hard to keep it to myself. And so that decision was to, start sharing a little bit of our journey online is how it started out. And we had a overwhelming request. Are you going to write a book? Am I
People started asking
like,
her, "Are you
nope,
going to write a book?
I'm not.
You should write a book. Like this is great stuff. This is so helpful. You should write a book." And
And
so,
and again, like my initial reaction to that was no, because
yeah,
it felt very hard, it felt very deep, it felt very vulnerable. Um, but as I've noticed, my process seems to be it's initial reaction and then evaluation.
yep.
And then decisions based on that. And so we ended up pulling some of the things I shared on social media and then also some deeper things that we shared the journey of our first year. So it's called Swept Away, a True Story of Grief and Acceptance, and it follows the first year of our loss. It shares some of those things that we've mentioned tonight, like what did it look or feel like and when we ran the Grand Canyon? What was it like for us when we went back to the canyon where the accident happened for the first time? What was it like when we came up on the first anniversary and those kinds of things, and how, not just what we were doing, but how we were actually working through that? And as Blair mentioned, it's available on Amazon.
And one of the things that I just wanted to mention with the book,
Mm.
as we've spoke to tonight, Blair had mentioned it and Becky mentioned it. There's the mind model remember versus relive.
Yeah.
A lot of what we've been speaking to tonight is remembering the events of the day. In order for Becky to write the book the way she wanted to write the book, she had to go into reliving it. And so there was a part of her stepping back into that world and reliving those moments so that she could capture the true feelings and emotions and things that she was working through at that time. So this book is really her heart and soul on paper and how she worked through those moments. There's a little bit of what I did and that kind of thing in there, but this is really Becky's masterpiece and Becky's true heart and soul put on paper, as to what she was going through and how she's worked through it. And like she mentioned, that first year. So uh, it it was anyway, just sharing that there was some big things that came through that. So, and it really goes deep.
And we've gotten feedback from it that, people are worried, like, I don't know that I can go there.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of light in it too. There's a lot of light and hope and love throughout it, because when you have a process, when you can identify how to work through something, you can work through anything. And if nothing else, I hope that if you choose to read it, the listeners out there, that you walk away from its pages with a little bit more light and love and understanding and hope for yourself in your own world.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's truly amazing and beautiful because just even listening to your story, I know I heard bits and pieces and like we worked with the same company, and so like there was lots of information out there, but hearing it from you in this way has moved me and helped me identify things in my own life. And I by no means can relate to your story in any way, shape, or form of what you've actually been through, but the tools that you've used, I can relate to those and I can apply those into my own life and see improvement. And so that's what's so powerful too about your book is it is a moving story of tragedy and but it is applicable to anyone. And because your story is so tragic, it doesn't allow people to have that excuse of, well, mine's so bad, mine's too hard. I can't do that because mine's worse.
Mm-hmm.
Like it really removes that barrier. So
Yeah.
I am so appreciative to you guys for being on, but also so appreciative to you guys for sharing your story because I can understand a glimpse of how difficult that must have been. And I just really, my heart goes out to both of you for the work you've done.
Mm-hmm. It is it was a very, very difficult book for me to read. I'll tell you that. But by the end of it, I realized, this is tragic, but it's tragedy into turning into triumph.
Mhm.
And, literally coming through the other side and how to get to the other side. How you guys, well, you, Becky, got yourself and Tim as well, but through to the other side
Yep.
without blowing everything up and going, this is horrible. Like it was amazing. Some of the very, very, honestly, maybe this is a little selfish of me to say, but your discussions, although not major on the mind models, the use of tracking And seeing all the stuff that you guys were just sharing on this show and that were in the book is eye-opening for me. I never thought that the mind models would actually facilitate that level of change and depth and coping, problem solving, and turning all of that into success for your life. Like,
You know,
wow.
there has been a couple times, Blair, where Becky and I, we truly, going through your course, going through My Model Coach was a blessing for us. And I have no doubt that it was a blessing that we went through it a year before.
Almost to the
Mhm.
day.
Yeah, almost to the day before the accident.
Wow.
These skills were practiced. These skills were, became a thing in our home. As Becky mentioned, we were teaching it to our girls, and our girls were absorbing it like a sponge. I had my 7-year-old running around, mind modeling me, and
Making daddy be a little bit more effective.
helping me be a bit more effective. And these skills, when our world came crashing down around us, we leaned on these skills, and it was truly amazing how effective they
Hmm.
are. We, just to share, we've never been through traditional counseling. We never have been to a counselor for any of this. Like, we've simply relied on the skills that we learned through My Model Coach, and they are a life-changing skills. I've shared it before, to other people that these skills, I can't put a price on them. They are, I know, knowing Blair the little bit that I do, I know he loves hearing that they're priceless. Um, but they truly are. They're life changing. And you can't put a number on the way it's changed our lives. I sometimes go back to, where would we be now if we didn't have these skills?
It's a
And
very that's a very scary thought,
it
honestly.
is.
It's
Yeah.
a very scary
It is.
thought. Like what might have happened had we not
Yep.
had access to the tools that we had readily available to us.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I also want to highlight this too, like, yes, we had them before it happened. We've been practicing them on a different playing field. Okay. When this happened, that changed. The
Yep.
skills didn't, like the pairings of the mind models, but their application, their like the level in which we leaned on them did. And that's the coolest thing I think about mind models is they are adaptable to any situation. So if you're dealing with fear and anxiety, those thoughts, those stories that are playing through your head, you have the ability to break the chains of that. You do not have to live shackled by it anymore. You can find a way through and actually start getting back to living the life that you want for yourself instead of the one that you feel is the only thing that you can get because of whatever limitation you may be experiencing.
Yeah.
Because with mind models, you can get traction on that.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed too in working with some of my more severe um, cases or clients, I guess, uh, especially with phobias and anxieties. They walk in and depression. They walk in thinking this is impossible. This can't change. I've been to this doctor, this doctor, this doctor. I was on a podcast with Mike Dillard, who's a good friend of mine. You guys know him. He's got like 400,000 followers. Bottom line here is he claims the mind model saved his life. Well, he says, you saved my life. Well, no, it was the application of skills and behaviors and the mind models that transform people in spite of traditional methods not working. Mind models still can work and do frequently. Um, Patty, a person we know, was in depression for, in excess of 10 years. And she became a mind model method coach and poof, she's got that and she's certified as a phobia freedom formula coach. And that just transforms your life quickly, very quickly to break that down. But it's maintained with mind models at the core.
Blair, I
Yeah.
don't know if you're even aware of this. So I actually had Patty, as we were talking about today, like water's a big deal for me.
Yep.
Um, Getting in the shower, sometimes even hearing the toilet flush, my body's like, and all of a sudden it wants to pull me down a very dark path. Well, to test to see, because I've got a process that works pretty decently when it comes to water now, because I've been
Right.
very intentional about it. But I actually had to run a phobia freedom formula fix on me with water. And it was really interesting
I
because
did not know.
yeah,
Sorry.
so gonna fill you in.
Yeah. A
Um,
large scoop. Okay.
like, so, hi. Um, when I would hear the word water, like I would tense.
Mm.
Okay, I would feel this felt sense of tense. And when we got on, just hearing the word water, and a scale of 10, 1 to 10, I would immediately be at a 7, just with the word, no other anything. And by the time going through the thing, like it dropped to like a 0, 1. And
Wow.
it's been really interesting for me to notice, like when I see the pot of water or when I'm going in different places, that tenseness that I used to experience, like that gearing up for,
Yeah. Bracing almost.
dramatically less. And so, what's really cool about the phobia freedom formula is going through that. I had the mental part of it, like I'm gonna wrestle this bowl to the ground, and I've got my process. But there were certain things going on inside of me that wasn't quite doing the trick.
Yep.
And so being able to go through and have her run a phobia freedom on me, it was actually really cool to be able to feel the perceptible difference in
Mhm.
how that works. So I just wanted to put a plug there as well. Like the mind models themselves are super powerful, and the way in which you use them has wide application. But what Blair's been talking about with like phobias and things like that, there's some emotions that are stored in your body that you may be not consciously aware of that are being activated in certain scenarios. And his phobia of freedom actually interrupts that, and you can actually literally feel a significant difference in the intensity and your felt sense when you're dealing with those things. So I just wanted to share that with you because
Thank
I
you.
didn't think we had chatted about it before, and I wanted to let you know that I've been kind of like simmering on it and like, how is this going? Like, what's working for me? How's it impacting me? Because I had a pretty solid process, but there's still a difference, effective difference in how it
Yeah,
shows the world. So just wanted to share.
exactly. Well, like I said, that do loop is what I use in the phobia freedom formula. And when you actually physiologically break that loop, it opens up
Mhm.
and you can shift. Like your brain, your body. You don't even have to know what's going on. Just do it and experience it. That's was just freaking amazing. Just amazing shift for me. Fear of heights, huge. And when done to me, it just melted away. And this is over um 35 years ago.
Mhm.
Like, oh, it's stuck till now. I still
Mhm.
don't have a fear of heights anymore.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Awesome.
wow.
Well, that was a powerful conversation with lots of takeaways for myself and I'm sure all the viewers today. So thank you, Tim and Becky, so much for joining us today. And we definitely are gonna chat again sometime soon, I am sure.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it and thank you everyone for watching.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you for having us on, Claire and Ashley. We appreciate it.
absolutely. Thank you very much, Becky, Tim, and Ashley for jumping on. And Ashley, looking forward to doing the next one with you too.
Sounds good. Thank
Wow.
you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Well, thank you so much. There's a lot of this that I hadn't heard before.
Mhm.
There's
So,
that.
I mean, I read a lot and there's a lot more detail in the book, but you guys saying it, it just, I don't know, it's just hitting me hard.
I was going to say one of the things that wasn't covered in the book, and really I haven't spoke about a lot, was a lot of what I experienced over those 2 days and
Yeah.
what I went through in finding
No,
our
it's
daughters and, what was going through my mind when, I mean, because I pulled Kinsley from the water, did CPR on her. There's forging of 3 rivers and a whole bunch of stuff to get her back down to the ranger story, a whole side that I haven't really shared. Because there's actually 3 spillways that come through right there, and all 3 of them are raging rivers. And so I had to forge those in a car to get her back to the ranger station. The next day, there was a lot that went into finding Ellie and where I found Ellie. Search and rescue was all over down there, and you know, I actually found her in a location that search and rescue, the DPS helicopter came over after the fact and took me back. And there's just a lot of my side of the story that's been asked to be shared, but I haven't really gone there. So
One
anyway,
of these days.
just sharing.
thank you.
There's a lot to it. There really is.
Yeah, there is, I'm sure. Wow. Well, again, thank you so much.
Yeah, no
Appreciate it.
problem. Yep. And it's so good to see you, Ashley, again.
Yeah, it is.
Just let us know if and what you guys need from us.
Yep.
We're around, so.
Yeah, I
Cool.
appreciate that a lot. Thank you for watching. Continue learning by clicking one of the videos in front of you. Don't forget to subscribe and join our community for deeper dives into mind model mastery secrets. Give a like and leave a comment as we would love to engage with you more.